So we're going to talk about Elon's 2018 executive comp plan, the CEO plan today, which was struck down by the courts in Delaware. And I'm here today with Andrea S. James, who is the OG Tesla analyst, the one who had the bravery, the courage to call it way back in 2012 on CNBC, defending herself. And then later she had a role in investor relations for Tesla, but also then worked for Axon and worked in investor relations, finance, and communications. And I think has been key in like developing their communication strategy. So, welcome, Andrea.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
First, I'd like to ask, what do you think about Elon's plan? Tell us what people thought back then, and what do you think about what the judge in Delaware did?
Yeah, I think in 2018, the New York Times wrote about it and they said it's about as shareholder friendly as they come in terms of
Mhm.
executive compensation. And the reason why is Elon gave up all forms of guaranteed compensation with the asterisk that he got a minimum wage under state law, which I think he
Mhm.
never cashed those checks, right? But basically, he did not get paid for being a CEO, and he would only get paid in the form of his stock options that would vest if the company was able to achieve select market cap milestones as well as key operational milestones on revenue and profit.
Mhm.
And so at the time, those milestones were, out of this world. Tesla had to become one of the largest companies in the United States and therefore in the world. And everybody just kind of laughed. And it was very, very ambitious. But it was sort of win-win in that Elon would only get paid if shareholders also did extraordinarily well.
Yeah, so there's a lot of Tesla shareholders, now sitting on gains. So Tesla had to reach a $650 billion market cap for Elon to reach all of his goals there, and he could reach different milestones. One of them was on revenue, I believe it's 175 billion, and then $14 billion in EBITDA. So it's pretty staggering. You know, at the time, or I think Tesla was $50 billion of market cap, or maybe even lower.
He had to
Um,
he basically had to 10x the company.
yeah, and Elon certainly worked hard. He was in the factory, working on the Model 3 ramp. Almost losing his mind.
You remember when he tweeted the picture of him holding the cardboard sign that said bankrupt?
Yeah,
I mean, there were periods where they said the Model 3 was gonna bankrupt the company and the amount of stress that he went through with that and sleeping on the factory floor and yeah.
so then the judge struck it down, or basically said that we resend it, and you got to kind of start back, and maybe have a do-over. What do you think about the ruling itself?
Well, I read all 200 pages. I honestly, the first thing I felt very sad reading it. It felt
Mhm.
shocking because I think that the Delaware courts are known for being shareholder friendly. And I think that let me call it a bias that many of us in business have is that the Delaware courts are sort of predictable in a way and very, very fair.
Mhm.
And there was a lot in the opinion that hung on, I mean, it's an opinion, but the 2 points were that Elon was in control of the company, and so I think that was a key, like, legal finding, and then because of that, there was this entire fairness standard, and I am not an attorney. I mean, I was new to some of these concepts when I read the 200-page ruling, um, and so the bar for proving that it was fair and the onus to prove it fell on Elon and the team because he was found to be in control of the company, and, um that is unprecedented. The opinion itself says that that's unprecedented. The opinion said it, I think it boldly goes where the Delaware court has not gone before. So it
Mhm.
really is a deviation from what you would expect. And so I just think it was very, very surprising and shocking.
Yeah. as a Tesla shareholder, knowing how hard Elon worked and like knowing how much it has like changed my life and changed a lot of people's lives, it felt very wrong. Um, just for it to be in doubt for Elon moving forward, maybe there's some kind of fix, but um, it just seemed wrong. It was overwhelmingly supported by the shareholders, back then, and the share price for Tesla like had to stay strong for a long time, so it couldn't just like touch
That's right.
250 billion. It had to stay there.
Yeah, I had
Um,
to average these market caps over long periods of time, months,
mhm,
quarters. Yeah, I agree with you. I also felt like voiding the entire thing. I guess what I don't understand, and I would love for an attorney to weigh in. Maybe we could find an expert. But why is the remedy to void the entire thing? It seems like very drastic to go back and try to undo something that was done with a majority vote of the shareholders. I also don't understand why, if the finding is that these directors were truly not independent, you know, directors are voted in by the shareholders. And so the question I have is, what were the shareholder votes for those directors after the plan? If shareholders are unhappy with the board, there is a remedy for that and they can
mhm,
vote out board members. And so my question is why are we not trusting that the shareholders have the company they want and the directors that they want? And why are we kind of over indexing on this one plaintiff, who I believe had bought 9 shares? Now, there had been stock splits since,
mhm,
but back in the day, he had bought 9 shares. It just seems like it's hard to conclude that there's not some sort of bias there.
mhm.
I'm being careful, obviously, but and I will say, look, I feel like personally, I do feel very angry, but at the same time, I do think that um, you problem solve from a position of neutrality. You just kind of get calm, and where do you go next? And so that's kind of
Mhm.
the mindset I'm bringing here. But I
Yeah.
just when I read it, I was like, um, so
So initial analysis was that Tesla can just do a redo and everything will be fine. But I think there's at least two issues. One is that the judge talked about lawyers' fees and that it's customary that above $1 billion that the lawyer's fee is only 15%. And some people did some calculations. Some are saying it might be $5 billion. It might be more. So
this
like
this is so
Tesla
wrong.
shareholders are going to have to pay 5 billion to a law firm.
My mind is real, like this can't, like, sorry to, but there I'm a little speechless. That is so wrong. It is so wrong. You can't, you take it from Elon's compensation, and what you it's like you're giving it back to the company, but yet the shareholders don't want that opinion. It just feels like control is being taken away from the shareholders, and from the majority opinion.
Mhm.
And the
I
law
think there's this desire to like make history and like set precedent, make history. Seems like in the way the ruling was written.
let me
Yeah,
let me let me just, like, no crime was committed here, okay? Nobody was killed, right? Like,
exactly.
nobody was physically harmed. Like, to have this level of like, it's so punitive when nobody was harmed. In fact, massive numbers of people were actually helped.
Yeah, 5 billion is a lot of money or whatever it's going to be. And Tesla certainly has a lot of cash, but you know,
It's unjust. I
it's
I
it's
hope they
their
appeal
it's
all
their
the way to the
cash.
Supreme
It's
Court, and I hope they win.
mhm. So you hope they fight it, but that might leave a future deal with Elon in doubt. And Elon's expressing a little anxiousness about creating this world class robotics company and AI company and being subject to these kinds of things by not having as many votes.
I don't see why you can't pursue both paths of appealing the ruling, fighting that, and then
Mhm.
coming up with some sort of new compensation structure that also addresses all of the findings in the opinion and kind of checks all those boxes, so that way you do have something going forward where you won't get this kind of decision in the future, and would have to pass a vote of the shareholders. So why not pursue both? I mean, I hope that they're pursuing um,
Mm,
both paths. Yeah, they'll be fighting that court case on one front and then trying to address some of the concerns on another, maybe relocating to Texas and then going forward. I don't know.
mm,
That's also something that's come into play. So if they move, the incorporation to Texas and then have a new shareholder vote, I'm not sure how all that works, but I've no doubt that they are putting on their best problem solving hats and thinking about ways to go forth.
mm. And maybe one reason why they've been holding on to cash is they might have come to the conclusion based off of questions that the judge was asking and how the trial was going, that maybe it wasn't going to go in their favor. So maybe
Well,
we know Elon's worried about recession, that kind of thing. He doesn't want to put Tesla's mission or company at risk.
so I just want to, sorry, an idea I just had. So, and forgive me, I don't fully know. Has Elon exercised all of those options? My understanding is he has not.
The 2018 he has not. So the 2012 he has.
So when he bought Twitter, he did that out of previous options, not out of the 2018.
Yeah, previous options and stock.
Okay. So it could be like, let's say that they had to do this like vomit inducing thing of pay a lawyer's fee of $5 billion, which honestly just makes you want to, it just makes me sick.
Mhm.
But like, they would probably, I would assume, pay it in the form of those options. Um, oh, if you void the entire plan, then the options don't even exist. Huh.
So in voiding this plan, theoretically, Tesla gets back like $3 billion that they paid out. That was the value of the plan when the plan was made, and that was expensed to the profits of the company over the years as those were granted, as those milestones were met, and etc. Um, so they'll get back $3 billion in profit, and I don't know if that'll happen this quarter or when they'll decide to do that. And then maybe we can go stay on that point for a second, and then we'll talk about what might happen in the future
Well,
accounting wise.
this is where the accountants will earn their weight in gold, right? Because on the next quarterly earnings, what do you do with this judgment and the accounting treatment of all of the expenses you have taken for this plan over the years? But now a judge has voided it. But if you're appealing, what do you do with this limbo, and how do you talk about your earnings, and what are the gap implications for having this reversal? And because it's unprecedented, like I mean, there's going to be some judgment calls, I would imagine, that they're going to have to
Mm,
make and how they communicate it. Um, so you've got that. The other thing is that the basic share count, if he hasn't exercised the options, I don't believe they will have shown up in the basic share count yet. And so it's
right.
not like there'll be a share count um benefit at all. Maybe some of the diluted will show up, like but by the way diluted shares are calculated, it's not this one for one of every possible share there is. It actually depends on the share price. It's actually quite complicated calculation.
Mm,
So yeah, the big thing that we all think when we're outside of a company is that the diluted share count is truly the amount of shares outstanding. No, you actually have to go into the 10K and there'll be like a table. And I think the proxy might have as well, of all the potential shares that could be awarded. We should actually, I don't know if we have time, we should go find it. And
go.
okay, so our little addendum here where we go through Tesla's 10K. Um, and your viewers really deserve to make money if they're willing to sit with patience through how to read a 10K.
That's
Yay,
true.
fellow nerds, welcome. Okay. So there's a table that will show how many outstanding stock options, RSUs, those are restricted stock units, there are. And so this is Tesla's 10K that was just most recently filed. And here you can see the description of Elon Musk's 2018 CEO performance reward. And there were 304 million stock option awards that were awarded with that, and that's inclusive of splits. And here you
Mhm.
can see the milestones that he had to and Tesla had to achieve for him to achieve these tranches. And so you can see he's got these revenue milestones, and then also the EBITDA milestones. And so interestingly enough, right, lots of profitability milestones that were hit
Mhm.
on the path to achieving these tranches. Okay, so 304 million stock option awards. And so you can scroll up, keep that 304 million in your head, and you can see that the number of options outstanding in the beginning of the period, this would be the beginning of 2023, were 343.6 million, just around.
Mhm.
305 of those are going to be Elon's 2018 award. So
Right.
you can see the vast majority of the outstanding stock options at Tesla are Elon's options. And then you can see in the period they granted this many more, 9.5 million more. This is how much was exercised in the period, how many were canceled. That's interesting. Maybe people quit or whatever. Uh,
Mhm.
or maybe they didn't achieve their goals in a certain amount of time, whatever. I don't have details on what's going on in that. And so at the end of the period, there were 344 million stock options outstanding. You can also see if you look at the table up here, this says stock options. And look at the share price, the weighted average exercise price of these options, right? $30.
30
Yeah.
$30. Yeah.
Yeah, $30.65. Clearly, that's Elon's 2018 award. You see, these are RSUs. These are restricted stock units. This is how you pay your regular talent. um,
Mhm.
you just give them an RSU. It's like a stock option where the strike price is zero. It's just worth the full amount. You don't have
Yeah.
to exercise. It just becomes yours. And so that's a normal part of compensation. And so you can
And
also see
employees can also make a choice, so they can choose between the stock option route or the RSU route at times.
is that true? That would be company specific.
Right.
Because not Yeah, that depends on the company. Many companies do not give you a choice.
Yep.
And so, um, exercisable invested um, is 329 million. And look at the weighted average price there, um, $27. So I just wanted to kind of share, when you scroll up to the diluted share count, which um, they don't include, if you hold those numbers in your head, the 300 million, if you go up to the diluted share count, let me see. Oh gosh, I'm going to search on the word options and it's going to be like, it doesn't have, let me try it.
Try diluted maybe.
Yeah, diluted is, but I want to get where they describe what goes into the diluted share count.
Here it is, when calculating.
Yeah, no, here it is. Okay, so these are the 3 billion. Yeah, because these numbers are millions. These are the 3 billion basic shares. See
Mhm.
basic. And then they add, God, sorry, the site always pops up these things. So these are the basic shares, 3 billion. Then they add stock-based awards. That's lower than the number that we saw below, the 340 something million.
Mhm.
Then, of course, there's some dilution associated with the convertible senior notes because the notes can convert into stock at certain share prices. So there's an amount of dilution associated with that. And then there's warrants that I don't know. I'm assuming they did a cap call spread at some point on the diluted notes. But anyway, and these are actually, this is an interesting, the gap presentation, if this is what I think it is, this is actually not dilutive, it's anti-dilutive, but gap makes you present it as dilutive. I don't even want to go down into it. It's these nuances of how share counts are presented that drive me crazy as an investor relations person because every company has to explain it.
Yeah.
In any case, and so here you have the weighted shares outstanding, but you can see they don't grab the full amount of vestable. So that's why the diluted share count it's a number, they present it, but there's actually usually some more shares out there that will
Mhm.
eventually. And that's one of the biggest misperceptions, even as a stock analyst that I had. I thought the diluted share count was
Yeah.
the diluted share count. No, it's not. It's not fully diluted. And the most ironic thing about it is they literally call it the fully diluted share count sometimes, and it's not even fully diluted. But there you go. So there's your geeking out on how to read the 10K to find out how many shares are outstanding.
Going to going to class today with Andrea. Yeah, as a
Oh,
stats nerd, I'll say, "No, you're wrong. In a probabilistic sense, it's fully diluted."
there you go. There
Because
you
it's
go.
probability weighted or something, like, there's some nerdy calculation you were alluding to.
I'm like, I almost want to say, but then I'm afraid I'm going to say it wrong. And then like, what's also great is I love working with like real accountants and controllers, and so I can run it by them and be like, "Here is my lay understanding of what we're talking about," and they'll be like, "You're right, except for this one little thing," and I'll go, "Oh, okay." And so, teamwork makes the dream work. um, yeah, thanks for letting me explain.
So then the other snag is like, okay, so what if shareholders kinda, and it'll probably be different, but what if they kind of award Elon the same package as 2018, um, saying that you've earned it. Let's say you can do it legally and all that and compliance wise, and Tesla can disclose everything the judge wanted them to disclose.
The
So then the value of the package today, you can't go retroactive with accounting, I don't
you
think.
can't backdate stock options, right? That was a big scandal about
Yeah.
that.
So
Doesn't
then, Tesla would have to incur a gap expense of 56 billion or 50 some billion, where that would be like a permanent mark on their profits, even though Tesla wouldn't have to shell out that new cash.
Yeah, I think for me, where my mind goes forever is like less so on the gap expense of it because
Mhm.
you can explain that, you can non-gap it out, you can, I mean, shareholders are well aware that this is an issue and whatever it ends up being, right? So even though again, these are really, really big numbers and it doesn't look great from an optic standpoint, it's all explainable. For me, it's more so um when shareholders voted for the 2018 plan, it was a very different time than it is today. Zero interest rate policy helped so much of where Tesla was and where they wanted to get to go. Zero interest rate policy was part of the environment at the time that's not there today. And so, a shareholder today, what's their incentive to vote for something? Their incentive in 2018 was that the company would be Tesla would become one of the biggest companies in the
Yeah.
world. And almost like you'd say, well, gosh, like the odds of this are really low. And so I'll just vote for it because I want Elon to be incentivized, shoot for the moon, right? They called it a moonshot. And if he does it, amazing. As a shareholder, I did great. And if he doesn't, I'll probably, they say aim for the moon, and if you miss, you're among the stars, right? Like you do really well, and I'll do really well, and it's fine. So you could see why shareholders voted for it in 2018. What's their incentive today? Shareholders don't vote to dilute themselves out of the goodness of their hearts, right? And so
Mhm.
the question is, what are the arguments that you can make, and what do shareholders get out of it? And that's what sucks about the fact that the time has gone and the work was done and the company has achieved all those milestones is because back when you couldn't envision it, it's a lot easier to vote for it, but it's done now. And so why give it up? Like why give up that level of dilution? Um,
Well,
so
one reason is, longtime shareholders, they're still sitting on gains from it, and it's helped people like pay off mortgages and
I agree.
buy cars. Like people buy Teslas with their profits from Tesla stock.
I don't disagree that the retail fan following has Elon's back. My question is for the institutional votes that you would
Mm.
need to pass the plan, the Vanguards and BlackRocks of the world. I don't think they would vote for it. But this is a hypothetical, like, and what are we actually voting for? Um, I mean, I'm envisioning something that basically is sort of retroactive in nature and doesn't have even bigger milestones. I don't think they would vote for it.
The institutionals? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, because they take a portfolio approach.
Mhm.
And so what they'll do is they'll say, "Well, if we vote for this for Tesla, then what if everybody starts doing it? We don't want all our companies to start doing this." And so it is a little bit of, I do think 2018 was a very special time, um, and the company was a lot smaller, and I think that the incentive and the compensation structure is going to have to look different going forward. Not that you can't stick with the same type of model, pay for performance. I think that conceptually is something the shareholders like.
Mhm.
Um, I think ultimately it'd be great to just undo that void, right? Just
Yeah.
like get that overturned on appeal and let the 2018 awards stand. Um, that would be the most optimal path, and you have to do a lot less problem solving on the back end.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about Tesla communications, and then maybe we could wrap up talking a little bit about Solve for X coaching. Uh,
Oh,
you have a ton of experience with investor relations, both like doing some side work for Tesla, but then at Axon. You have a master's in journalism from Northwestern. I'm actually a bachelor's in econ and stats at Northwestern. So
oh, yay.
we're
Go
fellow alums.
Cat.
But then you worked on communications with Axon and really helped them take the, take their communications to another level befitting of their size. Um, what are your thoughts on how Tesla approaches communications? Like Elon famously got rid of the PR department. They seem to be doing a lot more. They don't have an official department, and I don't know if there's an official email again yet for Tesla PR. But what are your thoughts?
Yeah, so I think it's really an interesting question. So, the company I just came from, Axon, I came in, I built the investor relations, then I built the strategy team. And so communicating with the public is downstream of some of those fundamental principles of operating a company. And then you're just communicating about who you are, what you stand for. Um, Good communications means communicating with all of your different stakeholder constituents in the way that they need to be talked to. So your shareholders need certain level of disclosure and communications. The general
Mhm,
public will need that. Your customers will need that. That's also marketing. But media relations, a lot of communications departments just see their job as media relations. And media relations is just, I can see why Elon has no interest in it because he doesn't feel like he can get a fair shake. And so, why even invest resources into media relations, right? And so, um, I can see why Tesla doesn't try to do media relations and
mhm,
takes its message directly to the public from the horse's mouth. And you know, interestingly enough, this is just fascinating, but when I left journalism in 2009, one of the reasons I left journalism is because I could see that the media model was being disrupted, and
mhm,
that the media as a gatekeeper was like in the last dying days of its heyday, right? And so, um, S and Twitter, it's so crazy. I remember writing a blog post about this, like, over 10 years ago, that Twitter itself was this, it was changing the game because all of a sudden companies could talk directly to the public without going through this intermediary of the
yeah,
media. Now, if you
absolutely.
can get a great story in the New York Times, fine. Like if that's your company and that's what you want to do and you're so proud and it makes everybody feel good, go do it. But ultimately, you don't need to do that to be successful. You don't need to do to sell product, and you don't need it to tell the public about who you are. So you can look through my tweets. Several years ago, I tweeted to Joe Rogan, like, you should have Elon Musk on the show. And there was some
Mhm,
background conversation about that. And you can see Elon went directly on Joe Rogan. And all of a sudden, he's getting his message directly to way more people than if he had even been
mhm,
on CNN, right? And so Elon is an excellent communicator and he has really expertly partnered with the influencer network, like people like yourself and the Rebellionaire Cub, right? And so he's been able to communicate with the public really, really well. I think there's gaps, right? And we can talk about how to close those gaps. So I'd say from a communication standpoint, um, Elon's instinct to go direct to the public and not communicate through an intermediary is the correct instinct.
Mhm.
Where the gaps are where it's a matter of translation. I think
Mhm.
this is why I loved investor relations. It was like
Mm.
translating for this audience, and what does this audience need to hear? And sometimes I will hear questions that investors will ask, and I'll be like, "Oh my gosh, actually we have a great answer, but we're not hearing the question behind the question, and that's what we need to answer," if that makes sense.
Mhm.
And so to the extent that there's gaps or there's misunderstandings, I would love to see Tesla take a first principles approach to communicating with the public, what they're about. Let me give you an example where one
Mhm.
of Elon Musk, SpaceX is doing this so well. Um, when there's a launch, the fact that you can tune into this launch and there's like two anchors there and
Yeah.
they're describing what's happening, and like SpaceX has been really great at taking the public along for the ride.
Mhm.
Um, and so,
And it's kind of fun too, right?
oh my gosh, you're just like it's the best reality TV ever, you know? And so, is there something like that that could happen
Like,
with
you could
space?
almost see the tears when, like, Elon's, like, knowing he's putting astronauts up there, like, he doesn't wanna lose a single astronaut, like, you know how, like, serious it is.
And the control room, when they're, like, all cheering, I've blogged about this. I cry every time. It's so great. And so, um, yeah, so if anyone, like, says, "Okay, Tesla needs to do better at communicating," I would say, "What is the exact problem that we think that Tesla needs to solve, and what's a way to solve that?" And I don't know that you actually need a PR department.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay. So, let's hear a little bit about Solve for X coaching. You're doing executive coaching, been doing that for a while. Have some high profile clients, not naming names or anything, but um, tell us a little more about that.
Yeah, thank you so much. So when I was a sell side analyst back in 2000, a long time ago, I left that in 2015, 16, and I opened up Solve for X coaching. Um,
Mhm.
I named it Solve for X because it was like everybody is solving for something different at different points in time, and we can all benefit from talking with somebody. And also, when I was on the street, when I was a sell side analyst, people used to say, Andrea gets paid to help people think. And I was like, oh, maybe I could do that and go out on my own. And then I took my executive role at Axon for 6 years, and it was, it took all of me. I also have 3 kids, so like not a ton of free time. And so
Mhm.
I wound down my client base at Solve for X, and I didn't do anything with it for the last few years. Um, I left Axon. My last day was December 29th, to do a sabbatical and really think about what I want to do next. And so I have room in my schedule to invite new coaching clients to me.
Mhm.
Do I want to be a full time coach forever? TBD, TBD. I'm in an interesting part of life where I've had really great success. And so I'm doing some, self exploration and discovery. And in the meantime, I'm doing advisory work, coaching, consulting. So yeah, thank you for letting me talk about it. But I don't need to make a hard sell or a hard pitch on it because my front porch light is on kind of coach. If you really need help, please reach out to me.
Mhm.
Uh, but yeah, and I love sitting with people. And I just think iron sharpens iron. And my career has benefited so much from great coaches,
Mhm.
performance coaches who drive me and push me to be better. And yeah, I love doing that for people too.
Yeah, I'm a big believer in coaching myself.
Tell me
Well,
more about
and let's oh, yeah, I'll tell you a little story.
yeah.
So, I volunteered at the football office at Northwestern and volunteered in the recruiting department. I did various clerical things, and I was also in marching band, but I was equipment manager too one spring. And so
Okay.
I got to like see spring ball and like be close to the players. And I actually got down on Northwestern. Like I was thinking of transferring to IU. And so the equipment manager, they were wondering if I was going to join them for the coming season, because they knew I was in marching band. So was I going to be marching band or equipment manager? And I told the recruiting coordinator that I was thinking about transferring to IU. And I get this call, and from the equipment manager, he says, "Do you want to do equipment manager?" I said, "No, I'm going to do band." Um, and then he said, "That's fine, Bradford, but um, Coach Barnett wants to talk to you." So I call the office. I have to convince him that Coach Barnett actually wants to talk to me. He's like this media darling at the time. It was after the Citrus Bowl. So they had gone to the Rose Bowl and then the Citrus Bowl. So I get a hold of him, and he's like, Bradford, I hear you're quitting Northwestern. That's no good. In fact, I want to see you in my office, Friday morning." So end up meeting with him and for about 25 minutes. This is Gary Barnett. And basically he teaches me that, like, when you're making a decision, if you can't be proud of the decision you're making, you can't look yourself in the mirror and say that you're proud of it, that um, that it's not the right decision to make.
Mm.
And then he repeated the line kind of that he said earlier. He's like, based off of what you told me, it's not the right decision. I don't think you could be proud of quitting Northwestern. Is what he said.
And you did what?
I stayed at Northwestern. I graduated early and double majored.
There you go. One of the things I do love about coaching is you can get stuff done in 10 minutes. You really can. Um, just that focused conversation with someone who's attentive, cares, listening, asking the right questions, um, great sense of humor. So yeah, it's great. I have really appreciated having access to performance coaches in my job.
Mhm.
I'm so glad that my last company, invested in me in that way. Um, yeah,
Is
you
that
can.
pretty typical, or is that unusual?
I think it's becoming more typical. I think it's a leadership movement, really. And I think
Mhm.
that you can accomplish so much more if you have a trusted space where you can kind of, it's more than just managing your anxiety. It's really like, here are these options. And it's all really confidential because it's involving, all kinds of things that are confidential. And so to have a trusted space where you can share these things and look at the different ones, and then also have a coach who kind of wipes away emotion a little bit so you can kind of get down to, because we don't make great decisions when we're
Yeah,
emotional. And if you're angry, like, you're making a decision because you're angry, might not be the best decision. Like, it's always better for your decision making to be as rational as it can be, and
yeah,
grounded. And so it's just really great. And then the other thing is coaches will remind you about what they see in you, and sometimes you need that. And so, yeah, it's not easy being, life is like, it's take all the help you can get. That's my,
yeah.
there's no shame in asking for help and trying to be better. And so I even had a health coach. I mean, because I have celiac disease and I didn't know how to
That's
manage
tough.
my career and celiacs. I can't be exposed to gluten. And so how do I have a job where I travel all the time and I have
Mhm.
kids and I have my executive role, and like, how do I eat? And she
Wow.
just helped me to also just to not be mad about it and just be like, okay, this is your reality and I have to solve for it. And so,
Mhm.
I traveled with Blueberry. So pro tip, they travel really well. So yeah, I've had all kinds of personal coaches, and so it's great to be with people who are either in transition or have a dream or want to get better or want to make a career move from one career to another. And if any of my current or former clients are watching this, like, thank you.
Well, she is Andrea S. James on Twitter and in real life. It's been a pleasure to hear you talk us through Elon's comp plan, talk a little bit about coaching and some of your time at Exxon, and um, you know where to find her. She's also on LinkedIn, and solve for X coaching if you're looking forward to executive coaching. This
Thank
is
you.
Yep, it's been great. Thank you so much. I'm
Thank
gonna
you.
Yep,
Bye-bye.
bye for now.